Call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone, and if you will stand so we can pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have a Jeremy Schultz from First Baptist Church here in Black Mountain. If you'll give our invocation, please.
Let us pray. God of our city, there is no better way to begin this time than by voicing our thanksgiving for a new year of service and citizenship in this beautiful city. We thank you for these mountains and these valleys that we drive, cycle, and hike through day by day. We thank you for our local businesses that bring joy and financial blessings to local families and to those who visit from far away. We thank you for our schools and the students, faculty, administration, and other staff who create such excellent places of learning. We thank you for our retreat centers and camps which provide rest, relaxation, and recreation to thousands of individuals every year. We thank you for our local churches and nonprofits who offer ministries of compassion and mercy to the least of these among us. And we thank you for this city government and all its leaders and servants who work tirelessly to promote the common good in this place. As we gather, may we be open to each other's ideas and beliefs. May we respect our differences. May we grow in understanding each other's motives. May we find patience, strength, compromise, and shared purpose as we seek to be faithful stewards of this city. Guide our hearts and minds in a spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. May all that we say and do in this place reflect your call on all of us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Fill our conversations with your grace and truth. Impart your wisdom upon this time and on these, your children. Amen.
Okay, the only announcement that I have is just to for folks who may not realize that Fred McCormick's mother passed away, and he is part of our Black Mountain family. He's one of the guys who's involved in almost every fabric and thing that's going on in the town and the schools, and we wish and pray for his peace, and just like for y'all to think about him and have him in your thoughts and prayers. All right, we have proclamations and awards, and the first proclamation that we have is honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired millions of people to participate in nonviolent protests to support the ideals of equality for all, and was a motivating factor behind a civil rights movement that had its goal the creation of a society tolerant of all races, cultures, and nationalities. And whereas the ideals of Dr. King and of Black Mountain's commitment to human rights are worthy of reflection and serve as a reminder that improving the quality of life for all members of our community is a responsibility of every citizen. And whereas the celebration of Dr. King's birthday is intended as a time for all Americans to reaffirm their commitment to the basic principles that underlie our constitutional equality and justice for all. Whereas the town of Black Mountain encourages all citizens to rededicate themselves to the principles of respect for human rights and freedom, of belief in nonviolence, of commitment to improving our community through community service and volunteerism. Now therefore, I, Don Collins, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, on behalf of the Board of Aldermen and the citizens of Black Mountain, wish to honor and do hereby proclaim Monday, January 14, 2019, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The town of Black Mountain will honor Dr. King at the 29th Annual Shenandoah Valley Prayer Breakfast Saturday, February 9th, 2019, 8 a.m. at Camp Dorothy Walls. Black Mountain has hosted the local Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Corporation, and each year scholarships are awarded to local recipients who have applied and made it through their selection process. The challenges that the scholarship pose include critical thinking and compassionate actions. And tickets for those can be purchased online with the Black Mountain Martin Luther King. They have a website. And if anybody has any trouble finding where to get tickets, they can get in touch with Angela, Carlos, Showers, any of us. We'll be glad to tell you. And it's $15. Okay. All right. Recognition of achievement. We have 2 presentations to be made by Mr. Rob Austin.
Mayor, Board, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. On behalf of Chief Freeman, who couldn't be here tonight, I'd like to present 2 recognitions of achievement for 2 of our command staff personnel that have attended some extra additional training. And I'll explain a little bit of that, but can I have Lieutenant Joe Kidd and Sergeant Chris Staten step up? Congratulations to Lieutenant Kidd. He is a recent graduate of the North Carolina Justice Academy Management Development Program. It's a very intensive course of study over 11-month period. Joe's attended training in leadership, budgeting, management, critical incident management, and ethics, and among other things. Very intensive. Only a select few people get to attend this course and are chosen by the Justice Academy itself. Again, it's a great job, and congratulations to Joe. Sergeant Staten also want to offer congratulations to him. He attended the Blue Ridge Leadership Academy, which is a 6-week program dealing with first line supervision, internal affairs, disciplinary actions. Again, it's a very intensive program, 6 weeks long. Chris learned a multitude of things on how to progress his career to the next step. Again, a very big accomplishment. Lieutenant Kidd had over 500 hours of training this past year with the Management Development Program. Sergeant Staten had over 300 hours of training in a 6-week period for the Blue Ridge Leadership Academy. Congratulations. And I'd also like to recognize Officer Joe Burris, if he could step up here. On November 14th at about 7:30 p.m., police dispatch received a phone call from one of our local hotels about a person who was possibly overdosing on some type of drug. Officer Burris was the first one to respond, found location, made entry into the hotel room, found the subject unresponsive. Through his quick actions, he administered a drug that we carry called Narcan. That's an anti-overdose reversal. His actions in using his Narcan, and Narcan is something that we've just gotten here in the last year or so. I know we've done a couple of life-saving awards, and I'd like to present Joe with one as well. His actions did save the life of someone who was suffering from a drug overdose. We initially got these Narcan units for us to carry because of the dangers associated with the police department, fire response, so forth, and we've used it about 3 or 4 times on citizens within in the community. I would like to present and congratulate Joe for a job well done. This certificate and this life-saving award. Good job. Mayor, thank you guys. We do appreciate your time for this. So.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Hey, good job, buddy.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sir.
No, I'll send it for Fred.
Okay, we'll now have our citizen comments, and remind you that to state your name and address here in the town, and you have 3 minutes. First one is Gary Biggers.
I'm Gary Biggers. I live at 207 East College Street, and that put me directly across the street from the trailer that had the tree fall on it. And my wife and I were the first ones to arrive at the scene of that. And it was probably more tragic, or could have been, than you can imagine. I've been to every meeting for 20 years. This is the first time I felt any need to make a comment. And I want to thank the rescue people and the firemen, the policemen. It was truly a dangerous situation. We had realized that this child was trapped just within an inch of being crushed by this tree. And we had unbelievable response. There must have been 30 emergency vehicles parked up and down East College Street. And they seemed to do everything right. They were calm. They were thoughtful about what they were doing. Everybody worked as a team. I've seen so many instances of the guys coming in here and saying, we've had all this training for this and this and this. And then when you see how that payoff can happen, even if this would only happen once a year, it's truly worth it. So I will never complain about any taxes that go to the emergency services. And there were responders from all over Buncombe County, West Asheville. There were probably 40 at least rescue people, firemen, policemen, and it was handled in such an amazing way. For an hour and a half, nobody really knew if they were going to successfully pull this off, and they did. So I just want to thank everybody and say you guys have a great emergency response. Black Mountain has, if you really need it, they're there, and they're there in numbers, and they're well trained. So thanks a lot.
I think I told what the little boy said.
Oh yeah, the Reed, the little boy, when he finally got out of the hospital that evening and came home, talking to him, we said, well, a tree fell on you, and he said, no, a tree didn't fall on me, a tree fell on the house fell on me.
Miss Elaine Lotzenheimer.
Elaine Lotzenheiser, 410 Avena Road, Black Mountain. Because of the snow in December and the situation with Fred and his mother, I wrote a letter to the editor that did not get into the paper at the necessary time, the appropriate time, and I want to read it at this time. This is to chastise the Board of Aldermen for choosing to ignore the governor, who pleaded for everyone to stay off the roads during and immediately after the record snow that we had over the weekend of December 8th, 9th, and 10th, as snow was still on the streets and the ground. Public Services Department head Jamie Matthews had requested that driving on the snow packs it down and makes it harder to clear from streets. Our town public service crews worked tirelessly in an effort to keep necessary roads clear for emergencies, which the governor had declared it was, and holding a town meeting for Monday night after more snow Sunday night was not a move to encourage the transparency that you claim. If attendees to that meeting listened to stay off the roads, then the town alderman should also have listened. Shame on you for holding a meeting when no one could come to listen to the authoritative device that would attend. What business was so urgent that it couldn't keep for a later date? Even the town clerk couldn't come because of where she lived, and you had to drive to someplace else to get Jennifer to do your minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. And James Bull.
Just sign in. I don't have anything to say.
Okay, buddy. Thank you. All righty. Is this for Mary? Yep. Standard.
Good evening. My name is Mary Standard, and I live at 118 Shenandoah Terrace. That's where my house is in Montreat, but my home is in the Swannanoa Valley, and I'm glad to be part of this wider community. I came to you in October along with Bob McMurray, Chamber of Commerce, and Pearl Hall to invite the community and the council to a celebration of the 125th anniversary of the founding of the town of Black Mountain and the 100th anniversary of the building of the current Andy Andrews Visitor Center, originally built as the Claudia McGraw Coffee House. Tonight I wanted to share with you the outcome of that day. It was a glorious day. It was a Chamber of Commerce kind of day. It was the kind of day Black Mountain and the Swannanoa Valley can relish for years to come. We had over 300 people come. It was great. The community pulled together. Aldermen were there. We learned new stories about the community. Black Mountain Bistro, refreshments were served. Volunteers baked cakes that Claudia McGraw had baked. And yes, Fred McCormick was a big part of that celebration as well. And we are so fortunate here in Black Mountain and the Swannanoa Valley to have our own local newspaper. And I urge all of us to support it by subscription. This wasn't on my plan to say tonight, but we need to support the Black Mountain News. Not just purchase it on the day, but to support it by writing letters to the editor for the Asheville Citizen Time, thanking them for the work that the staff and Fred and Christy and Lynn all do in making that a real part of our community. We're very fortunate. We shouldn't lose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Don, could I add something to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Mary and I talked about this before the meeting, but if you have bought a paper or gotten it by subscription for the last 2 or 3 weeks while Fred's been handling his mother's illness and her death, you realized what a lack the paper had of information about the town of Black Mountain, because most of what's been in the Black Mountain News for the last 3 weeks has been pertaining to Asheville, etc. And it's just rehashed Asheville paper news. So without Fred and our staff here, that's what our Black Mountain News would look like. So I want to second what she said, and please add my information to that, to subscribe to it or purchase it, and write letters to the editor that we appreciate what their staff does. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, communications from boards, commissions, and agencies. The first one up is the Black Mountain Fire Department annual report.
Mr. Mayor, board, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you the 2018 annual report for the fire department. The fire department is a combination paid and volunteer fire service. We have 21 volunteers, 11 part-time, 20 volunteers, who in 2018 we protected some 54 square miles of fire district, which includes the town of Black Mountain as well as the East Buncombe Fire District. The East Buncombe Fire District consists of Montreat, Ridgecrest, and some of Swannanoa. So when you're seeing some of these reports and you're seeing where it's city versus rural, the rural is actually what we consider the East Buncombe Fire District, whereas the city is the town of Black Mountain. This year we achieved the Class 3 ISO rating. That dropped from a 4, and that should take place as of February of this year. Also in 2018, we had a total of 748 years of service on our fire department roster. Our total calls, we had 1,652 calls. 2018, that is an increase from 1,525 from last year. The rural, we had 877, which we had 887 last year, so we actually had a little bit of a decrease, for a total of 2,529 total calls in 2018. Of those calls, 838 of those were multiple calls. And what multiple calls means, we were going on more than one call at the same time, or we had one call right after the other before we could get back and get everything back in service. 2017, we only had 687 of those. As far as exposures and lost, for building fires, We had 3,023,600 exposure. 1.4 million of that was in the city, 1.6 was in the rural area. For a loss, we had $220,500, 85,000 being in the city and 136,000 being in the rural. Also in the state of North Carolina, they had a record of fire fatalities in the state with 133. Unfortunately, we were a victim of those statistics. We had the first fire death since 1995 occurred in January of 2018. We had no fire-related injuries that actually required medical attention. However, there were some minor that we dealt with at the scene. As far as our fire prevention activities, we did 776 annual business inspections, 34 residential. We had 464 fire prevention activities for a total of 1,274. As far as our people hours, we had 35,632 and a half people hours. On calls was 24,273. We had 10,598 training hours and 761 and a half of extra duty hours. The extra duty hours is the time that the volunteers come in and spend extra time as well for attending meetings and doing standbys at the station beyond calls and training. In 2018, we had several fire department events. We did the medical standby for the Mount Mitchell Marathon. We had our fire department banquet. We had Safety Saturday, which we reached about 500 people, giving them all kinds of public safety information. We had field days at the schools, both the primary and elementary school. We reached 640 students. We participated in the Montreat Parade, the 4th of July celebration. We did fire prevention in the schools in October. We also reached the same 640 students for the two schools. We did a standby on Church Street on Halloween, and we reached about 2,000 people there. We had open house in October as well, and we reached about 1,200 people there. We participated in the Town Hall Day. We also participated in the Deck of the Trees that the Monte Vista does every year to raise money for heating assistance, and this year $27,761 was raised during the Deck the Trees. We had the Fire Department Kids Christmas Party. We also assisted the Police Department with wrapping and delivering of the Christmas cheer program. We also did CPR training throughout Black Mountain, and we taught 45 people how to do CPR in Black Mountain. We also had station tours, and that was several times each month we have station tours. We also said so long to a good friend. Steve Jones actually retired. He was our fire chief. We thank him for his 38 years of service and dedication to the Black Mountain Fire Department and to Buncombe County. He also opted to stay on as a volunteer, so you may still see him responding to your house at any given time. Thank you for your attention, and if there's any questions, I'll answer any questions for you.
John, how do you, those numbers about exposure and loss, where do those come from?
Those are estimates. Usually we'll do the exposures, we'll get the tax value, and then we usually do the contents, we'll cut that tax value by 50%. And then the loss is just a rough estimate. We don't actually have people come in and give us quotes. That's just a rough estimate of the loss.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Any questions?
Thank you.
No. Thank you. Alrighty, Mr. Woodward, give us a library annual report.
It's good to be with you. Thank you very much to the board for continuing to support the library. Just a bit of information about what's going on over the last year. We've done a lot of revisions, a lot of rebuilding and remodeling, but that was several years past. We celebrated just last year, though, as most of you know, no doubt, the 50th anniversary of the library. So what we've been really focusing on, part of it voluntarily, part of it involuntarily, is revitalization of the physical plant of the library. And a lot of this, some of this is doing with fire safety. For instance, we've installed a box that on the exterior of the building, I know many of the town offices probably have this type of thing, such that the fire department has a key to get into the library in case there's any problems. And I'm assuming that might be true also of the police department. But nonetheless, so we're focusing primarily on facilities. And a lot of this stuff has been done through a very much revitalized Friends of the Library program. That's something that has that fell into kind of a difficult state in the last couple of years, but now has really been revitalized. And we're focusing on revitalizing the landscaping too. As you know, it's been there over 50 years now, and a lot of these plants, you know, their lifespan is starting to really show. They're being challenged. So you'll see some improvements and additions and so forth on the front of the library over the next couple of weeks. Mostly you're going to see removal. And I'm sure some people will say, well, goodness, that looks awfully bare. And it will. But we're going to get some other stuff and put more landscaping in. In terms of like circulation and so forth, over 120,000 materials in general were circulated, including books, of course, CDs, DVDs, and audiobooks. The digital library is increasing and in its number and selection. And of course, it's free to download a lot of the ebooks and audiobooks as long as you just have your library card. Over 1,500 new library cards were issued in the previous year, or 2018. Close to 90,000 visitors, 6,500 adults and children participated in the story time and special events that you guys know we do for kids. And our new librarian, who is actually here with us, Melissa Presley, she stated that they had approximately 30,000 reference questions come in through the library. I'm sure some of them they don't like. They ask if they have a fax machine that you can use, or if you can vote there when voting's already finished. But anyway, she and I would like to say a great thank you to you guys, to folks that are involved with the Friends of the Library, and that's about it. Looking forward to a good new year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have a update from our Urban Forestry Commission, Ms. Sheridan Hill.
Mr. Mayor and Board, citizens, I'm the new chair, so I'm the least experienced person up here, and I beg your patience with me. I emailed Angela our report, and I was thinking that they would be handed printed copies of this, but okay, so you have a printed copy. What we have is a little really short 2-minute video, just really quickly summarizing what we did both in 2017 and 2018, because May 2017 or May 2018 is when we were going to present our 2017 report, but May 2018 we had all the flooding begin, and we had major staff upheaval here, and we just thought we'd leave y'all alone and get to where it was more boring and do our presentation. And so this is just a 2-minute video of highlights of what we did, and then you have the details in your printout.
The audio is not very loud, and that's because of the way the internet's connected to this video.
Oh, okay, so turn your hearing aids up. So that's our little highlight. And those statistics about oxygen and so forth, those came off of Asheville tree mapping. And we're next month going to set our goals for the next year. We're mainly looking at better public education, networking with other groups that are similarly concerned about what are our trees doing and how are we taking care of them. And as you saw in there, Montreat has really set the bar high. They've done an amazing tree board, urban forestry management plan, and I think they're also getting together a budget for arborists to be on staff and so forth. So we also had, as you may know, is Ruth Petard here? We have 5 members. We formerly had 7. We reduced to 5. We have 5, and right now we have 3 brand new members. So we had our chair move to another country. We had various things go on. So we now have a nice core. Everyone comes to every meeting, and I feel like we're going to have a good report for y'all next year. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now move on to the consent agenda.
So, item A, you'll have adoption of minutes of December 10th, 2018 agenda session minutes, December 10th, 2018 closed session minutes, and December 14th, 2018 regular session minutes. You also have a resolution authorizing funding for the Governor's Highway Safety Program. This is a funding pot that the police department can go after. Specifically for this funding request, it'll be $17,500 that we'll be seeking from the Governor's Highway Safety Program, which is a little less than half of the cost of a new police vehicle. The other portion of that money will come from our ABC restricted funds for the police vehicle.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve consent items A and B as presented?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, citizen comments. And I don't see anyone who signed up for citizen comments for unfinished or new business. Is that correct? All right, we'll go on to unfinished business then. Agreement for wholesale purchase of water from the city of Asheville. Continuing our discussion.
Yeah, I think we've been discussing this for a number of months, and we've put some numbers together, which we've supplied you with. If Assistant Town Manager Dean Luby would come up, he can kind of go over some of that for you.
So I have a little handout with the board, and some of you may have seen some of these numbers before. On the first page just shows us the last, 5 or 6 years, and our actual water revenues. Now we have different revenues in the water department. This is by far our biggest one, and this water revenue is based on when people are turning on their faucets at home. We have other kind of fixed revenues. There's a tap fee when people sign up. There's late fees if people don't pay on time. There's an MSD fee that we collect from MSD for doing some of their billing for them. But this is actually based on water usage. And Larry had asked about this specifically, and I'm showing you, I guess, 6 years worth of budgeted rate increases. Now the last 5 years of those have just been 2% per year. In fact, 1 year was only 1%, fiscal year 18. Next to the budgeted rate increase, I'm showing you the year-to-year totals in actual water revenues. In a lot of ways, they kind of correspond. Like 1 year, it's we budgeted a 2% increase, and actual water revenues increased by 2.98%. 1 year is a bit of an outlier. Last year, we only budgeted a 1% rate increase, but revenues went up almost 4%. And I did a little bit of research on this today, and I don't know. Well, we sold 500,000 gallons, or we billed a million gallons per month in extra water in fiscal year 18 than we had in fiscal year 17. So the water revenues, they're based on the rate people pay, but they're also based on how much water is being used. I don't exactly know why we used 500,000 gallons per month, or we billed that much to the entire town, but we did. But over the long haul, you can see our average budgeted rate increase has been 2.17% per year, and revenues have increased a little bit higher than that at 2.63, and that might just be because we're a growing city and we have more water users. So you would expect revenues to increase more than the rate increase would. Right now, the average citizen in Black Mountain pays about $30 a month toward their water bill. Now, if anyone's confused by that number, about half of what you pay to the town of Black Mountain, the town ends up paying to MSD. It's actually more than half. It's about 55%. So if your water bill is $50, the town is probably getting 22 of those dollars, and MSD is getting 28 of those dollars. The average residential customer is using about 3,500 gallons a month. There's certainly a lot of variability in that. You have families of 5 or 6, and then you have single individuals. So not everyone's bill is going to be at 3,500 gallons a month, but we know how much water we sell in a month. And we have 3,500 customers, and we sell almost 15 million gallons, or we bill almost 15 million gallons of water per month. Now, some of those are commercial accounts as well. The second page shows you, we have an agreement with Asheville right now where we are allowed to purchase almost 200,000 gallons a day 200,000 gallons per day of water from Asheville. And for the right to do that, we have total fixed costs of $5,000, and the water costs about the actual water that we purchase probably costs another $8,000 or $9,000 per month, and that's for a capacity charge of 200,000 gallons per day. Now, with some of the changes that are going on in the town, we're going to be taking over 600 new water accounts. The Avadum property is going to at least be putting in 25,000 gallons per day. Those 600 new accounts will use close to 100,000 gallons per day of water, and that's averaging the 3,000 gallons or so per day. So we're going to need to increase our capacity from Asheville. And the second page sort of shows you that for each 50,000 increment that we go up, our fixed cost alone to Asheville goes up almost $1,000 for each 50,000 increment. Now our variable cost will go up as well because we also will be paying for that extra water. So let's see, in the third page, I just I made a copy of the Public Service Director's CIP from our last budget, and we budgeted a little $400,000 in capital work for the water department. In the upcoming 5 or 6 years, the director, if you add up all the capital projects he would like to get going on, that total is over $3 million. So some of the big ones are like we have a bad water line that runs down Montreat Road, and then there's also a big water line on Highway 9, but there's a lot of water projects that the town is a little bit overdue on. And to accommodate some of these, I think it's become sort of clear that rate increases are probably going to be higher than the average 2% the last couple of years. For each percent of rate increase for the average residential customer, that increases their monthly bill about 40 cents. So it's not a ton of money, but if so we've averaged a 2% increase. That's really less than $1 for most of you on your water bill per month. Now, the MSD increases have typically been a little bit higher than ours. But I think the purpose is, with some of the purpose of me talking here tonight is that with this Avadum project, and we're going to need to increase our capacity with Asheville, and there's also many other big water projects that have to get done. When our budget starts rolling around here in March or April, and we have some budget meetings, we'll probably be budgeting a higher water rate increase than we have in the past to pay for some of the water fund is what's called an enterprise fund. The fees that we collect are they are intended to pay for what we're the expenses of that fund. There's no tax dollars that go in the water that are used in the water fund. So it so happens now that we have many capital projects. We're also expanding the system. We are going to take in some new customers that are they will add some extra revenue, but that extra revenue is not going to be able to cover all of the projects that we have in line in the near future. Hopefully by budget time I'll have a lot more, some additional data to provide to you that will sort of show if we increase rates, let's say at 3%, how much extra revenue would that give us? Would that allow us for us to fund the projects that the board feels is necessary in the next couple of years? Or what sort of rate increase? And I can also give you some rate studies of some neighboring communities, Asheville, Weaverville, Montreat. The last time we did that, I think, was 2 years ago, and Asheville, I think, was the second lowest, or I'm sorry, Black Mountain was the second lowest water rate per 1,000 gallons used of the 5 or 6 communities in our neighborhood here in Buncombe County. I'm happy to take any kind of questions if anybody has them.
Well, the purpose of asking you to, asking for some financial information is so we would have an idea of the comfort level that we can have in purchasing additional water.
Right.
We have a comfort level when we know that there's a customer on the other end.
Right.
For the fixed cost. Mm-hmm. But what we need to know from you and Josh is how much can we budget for excess capacity, which I don't think we have that number yet.
We don't have that precise number yet, and I can continue to work with that. There's a lot of the revenue side of it is quite simple, really, because we kind of know what these new residential customers are going to use. It's the expense side of it, like the maintenance and repair on these new lines, whether Jamie is going to need a man or two more. When we take on 600 new accounts, that's basically increasing our water accounts by almost 20%. So it wouldn't be unreasonable that we would have additional staff in the water department to work on that. And then there's a lot of other capital needs as well, but
I understand all that, yeah. But we can't make the decision on this water purchase agreement we can't wait till this spring for you to come out with budget numbers. We need that. We need to have an idea. But I would say if Jamie needs additional staff, mm-hmm. then that's just has to be, or we can't have a water system. It's not going to work. So that we'll have to fund that if he needs additional employees. But what we don't have to fund, and about this decision is about how much water we're going to ask for in the purchase agreement that we have in front of us tonight, that we're not going to vote on, but because we don't, we need to know that number.
Well, as long as right now we have a capacity that we're able to buy 200,000 gallons a day, and about for the last 8 months or so, we've averaged 150,000. So we have that kind of 50,000 gallons per day that we're really not using.
Right.
And if we keep it somewhere in that neighborhood, the additional, if we keep that float in that 50,000 gallons a day or so neighborhood, then the extra revenue that we get from those customers will cover the additional charges to Asheville. Now, if that float gets to be 100 or 150,000 gallons per day, then it may not.
And I agree. And so what we're doing is purchasing an additional $100,000 in
100 gallons.
gallons per day as in the agreement as it's written now.
Right.
And that's to be effective beginning June 1, 2020.
Right.
So that covers the Avatum company, which is, you mentioned, I've heard the number 35, and then I thought I heard the number 35,000 a day to 50 a day.
I was told it was starting at 25 per day is what I heard from.
The most recent number you've heard?
Well, I haven't heard that for a while. That was a couple months ago from one of
We need to nail that number down because we just have to have it for this agreement. Right. We need to know what they're aiming for, and then what they're looking at maybe just a couple of years down the road. And the other thing is, Ron, were you thinking it needed to be in 100,000 gallon a day increments, or?
I drafted that on the assumption that we were, but if we can do 50s, then we can obviously look back at those numbers and spread it depending on what they did.
So anyway, let's just for discussion's sake say that we would need to buy 50 a day for the Avatum, and they're going to buy it. You know, they're going to buy the water. So let's just say for discussion purposes, we need to do 50 a day, and we could do 50. You know, if they'd allow us to do that. Then the new customers that come on, we're budgeting for 300 of those customers in the June 1, 2020, 100,000.
That's what we're anticipating.
So is that another 50 for those 300 customers?
that would be per day. That would be, let's see. I'm sorry. That would be close to 100,000 per day. From those, or no, 50,000 per day for those customers. I'm sorry.
So 50,000 for the new 300 Asheville City, current Asheville City customers,
right?
And then 50,000 a day for Avatum. Mm-hmm. So that's our 100,000 June 1, 2020.
Right.
And then June 1, 2021
would be
another 50
for
another 300 Asheville City.
Yep.
Is that 50? Because that's 100,000 we're picking up there on June 2021. Is that additional 50 intended to be a buffer?
No, that additional 50 was on the assumption that each increment had to be 100,000.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can do 50,000 a gallon a day increments, we would do, and we're doing nothing but purchasing what we need.
Right.
We would go with the 100,000 in 2020 and 50,000.
An additional 50
on 2021,
right?
Making it 350,000 total, and then we already have a little buffer.
Yep.
It sounds like we have a little buffer, perhaps with the bottom, but you don't know.
True.
And but then with the other provisions that Ron has written in there, and as long as we're revisiting this agreement every year anyway, would it be your mindset and yours, Josh, and yours, Ron, that we're in pretty good shape as far as planning for future capacity?
I would think so. From what we're hearing from Asheville, we don't have to plan 10 years down the road. If 3 years down the road you find out that industry's gone wild and water usage is going up really quickly, we might want to spend more money down the road.
Yeah.
It sounds like now Asheville's got 40 million a day capacity and not approaching it, so it doesn't look like we have to worry about paying for what we're not using.
So I get you. We don't really need to worry about trying to work additional capacity fee into our water budget if we're only buying what we know we have customers for in this agreement, because we already have some padding in here.
Yeah, and the way that Ron wrote it up, I think, was nice, saying that if we exceed our capacity for, was it 3 consecutive months?
I think it's the language out of the old agreement.
But then we automatically jump to the next tier, which would really cost us an extra $1,000 in fixed costs, but we would be using that water because we wouldn't have automatically jumped to that next tier unless we were actually selling the water from Asheville.
Is the next tier 50 or 100,000?
Well, right now he has it written up as 100,000. I just talked to Josh and I talked about it a couple hours ago, and I personally think we should keep that tier as low of a number as we can, so I can't think of why we wouldn't go in 50,000 increments.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, if we revisit it every year at budget time, when
Right.
you're doing the water budget,
Yeah,
we revisit the agreement. I mean, I think we should be in good shape
Yeah.
if we do 50.
yeah. I think the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's providing Asheville will let us do this.
50,000 increments. I'm assuming since it's scaled that way, we confirmed that we
Well,
can increase the allotment in 50.
I would guess that they would, but I mean, I can check with somebody, I'm happy
Well,
to.
I'm just sort of wondering, Ron, if you're comfortable with it, I'm perfectly happy to make a motion to, to accept this agreement as you've written it, but with changing it to, with working language in it for the 50,000 increments, making B3 50,000 additional.
If that's acceptable, if
Yeah.
the city will do that, I can contact David Mel, find out if we
Yeah.
can.
Or would you rather vote on it next month after you contact them?
I don't think there's a screaming rush. I think we'd rather know the number when you vote for it. I feel a little
Sounds good.
squeamish about you guys voting, let me fill in the blanks later.
Yeah.
If we want to do that, we will work on my day.
That sounds good. So let's, I mean, I'm good for that, if that sounds good for the board, the rest of the board.
Everybody okay?
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, new business, Flat Creek repair contract, Headwaters Engineering. Jessica, if you will come up and give us a rundown, please.
We have a couple of contracts for you tonight, and the first one is the Flat Creek Greenway repair contract for some construction oversight from Headwaters Engineering. I brought some numbers to you right before the holidays about how much it would cost approximately to make that repair of around $17,000. And you asked me to go back and see if we could check on how much construction oversight would cost. And so the engineer said it would cost $5,100 to provide that construction administration and oversight for us to get underway with that. And he provided a service contract to that effect, which the town attorney has reviewed.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Flat Creek Greenway repair contract?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? No, wait a minute.
It's kind of Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it's just 1 and 3 says the same thing. All right, motion approves 5-0. All right, Ruinage Road areas plan, small area plan consulting services contract with Weatherreal Engineering. Is that the way you pronounce that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Last year during budget season, we budgeted some line items for small area plans, and Blue Ridge Road was the top priority for that. It is called for in the comprehensive plan as well, and has been there for a while. And now is a good time to get this project underway, and we're really excited about it. Weatherreal is based in Raleigh. They responded to the RFP, and they had excellent experience in this field, particularly with corridor work. And they came in at budget of $30,000, and they have provided a service contract to that effect that has also been reviewed by the town attorney.
Okay. Any discussion?
I make the motion to approve the Blue Ridge Road Small Area Plan Consulting Services contract with Weatherreal Engineering.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, the next one is Riverwalk Greenway Phase 2 preliminary engineering, and we'll need Mr. Sneed for that, or?
He is welcome to chime in. I know that he is very well versed in the minutia of this contract, as it took a lot of work to get it to you tonight. But I'm happy to tell you that It is the preliminary design and engineering contract with Michael Baker International to get us to project bid with the Greenway. And the town's portion of this contract is 20% of the total cost. If you remember, this is DOT funded, and that's why it gets complicated. But the town's portion of this cost is almost $150,000. And Ron, if there's anything else you want to add to this lengthy contract, please feel free.
I don't have a lot to add now. The twist in this contract, the reason it took so long, is it came to us in Michael Baker like these other contracts, our money, our deal. This one involves federal money, and those of you who've dealt with a federal contract, we've got that overlay of all the requirements the contract has to contain. All those things are in there now, but this is just a design contract. This money won't build anything, but this is the lay out the plan, design everything from walks alongside the river to getting under Highway 9 and under the railroad.
Jessica, does this include, phase 2 preliminary engineering design? Does this include the spur?
It does.
I was really, my sincere hope that spur, because we're talking about sidewalks coming up from the hotel up to downtown, that we could expedite that in some fashion, and we're not even talking about construction yet.
We may be able to prioritize that at the time of construction when the project goes out to bid.
When do you think it could go out to bid?
We're hoping less than 2 years to get all of this designed.
So we can't get those sidewalks started for 2 years?
Well, the problem is that they're not sidewalks, is that they have to meet design standards for a greenway, which is different than a sidewalk standard in order to qualify for these dollars.
But still, we're talking 2 years before we can...
More than likely. We're hoping that we'll be able to have some wiggle room to expedite pieces out, but we're not exactly sure if we're going to be able to peel out pieces for design and construction separately. We have amended the scope and worked toward reconciling all of our funding and scope into one agreement. And once we have all of that, we may have a little bit more clarity on how we can prioritize locally.
Can we prioritize, though, that the sidewalks, or whatever you want to call it, is the first thing that is designed toward? We can get started on that?
Yes, we have talked about being able to do that, yes. I don't know exactly how long the time for design would be for the spur only. We'll be having a new meeting now that this is all of our documents are in one place and approved by DOT with the consultant to iron out all the expectations for timing, and that will involve all of you. And so watch for that calendar invite, 'cause that will be very soon.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve preliminary engineering and design contract with Michael Baker International as presented? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. All right, the public hearing is public text amendments for notice of violations for warning letters. And Jessica, if you will give us an update there, please.
Need a motion to open the public hearing?
You make the introduction and then they go.
Okay. This text amendment is pretty straightforward. In the ordinance currently, it gives the staff the option to issue a warning letter before sending a notice of violation for a zoning infraction, and we've just changed it so that barring a dangerous or life-threatening situation, we will always send a warning letter, so it's consistent.
Your motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Let's see, there's no public comment. Is there any discussion by the board members? Calling for a vote then. All in favor?
We have to close.
No, wait a minute. Yes, we do. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Do I have a motion to adopt the statement of consistency?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Do I hear a motion to adopt the ordinance 019-01 as presented?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Public text amendment privilege license for building permits. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for text amendments?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
I'll just stay right here. We've talked about this before, that the General Assembly repealed the town's ability to issue privilege licenses for businesses, and occasionally we are coming across some expired language in the ordinance. So this is simply removing some references to a business privilege that we cannot actually issue.
Any discussion or questions from the board members? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I hear a motion to adopt the statement of consistency?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Public hearing for text amendments is
Give that motion to adopt the ordinance.
motion to adopt the ordinance 019-02.
So moved.
All in favor? Public hearing for text amendments is to noticing requirements. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor? Jessica?
This is an effort to create some consistency with noticing requirements in several sections of the ordinance, actually 12 to be exact, where we are given the latitude to set our own noticing requirements. We have made an effort that they are the same at every opportunity. So you will notice there's also some minor corrections throughout the ordinance for the sake of clarity of what type of amendment is being referenced to, that's being noticed, or who is actually doing the noticing. And I think there were a couple instances that referenced the board putting out signs versus staff putting out signs and things of that nature. The noticing that standard that we are trying to establish when we are allowed that opportunity is for mailings and for notices in the newspaper and where things are physically located on the property.
We have no public comment who signed up. Any discussion by board members? Hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I hear a motion to adopt the statement of consistency?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I hear a motion to adopt the ordinance 019-03 as presented and amended?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Public hearing for text amendments to right-of-way closure. Do I have a motion to open public hearing on ordinance 019-04?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're on the...
Last one. There are a few changes that take place in this text amendment. One is that in the staff report that we provide to the planning board and also to you for the right-of-way closures is to include comments from the fire department. That request has come up a couple of times, and we want to just make sure everybody has that. Also, it includes some scheduling, so the planning board will have to move on applications after 30 days after they've received all the information that they need to make their decision. And if they don't, then it would be a motion to the affirmative and be brought on to you. We also clarify some language about how the planning board creates a complementary application to expand the scope of a road closure if they feel that that is the right thing to do. Because the person making an application only has the ability to close things which they touch or to request that, and sometimes that can create hanging little dog legs and whatnot. And it also tries to standardize the notification on the property and in the newspaper with others. And we've also discussed with Ron about who in that area encompasses.
Okay. And as I stated at the agenda meeting, I have a problem or question or recommendation on a couple of items. On the first page of the ordinance, if you've got it in front of you at the bottom, under the planning board's activities, it says a notice of request and pursuant review of the planning board should be sent to all property owners within 200 feet of the requested right-of-way closure. My concern with that is the statute says that you give notice to adjoining property owners. My concern about enlarging that scope is, should there be a court battle over a street closing, there's a court history or case law history behind that statute that tells you what happens when. If we enlarge it to 200, then you don't have that basis to look back to. And I have some suggested language on the change of that, taking it back actually to the statutory requirement. And I would suggest that that sentence be changed to notice of the request and the meeting of the planning board to review the request shall be sent to all owners of property adjoining the section of street proposed to be closed. And that's just back to statutory language. On the second page of that proposed ordinance amendment, there's language about what notice will be given before the meeting comes to you for the public hearing. Keep in mind, the statute does not require this to go to the planning board at all. That's something this body has done. So we got a little flexibility there. But I didn't want to enlarge it and create places we can step in a hole. But on the second page, this is where you do have to. You have the meeting where you adopt a resolution of intent to close. I don't like that language because what it really is just a call for a public hearing. But the statute calls it, you have to adopt that resolution. So, and again, it says within 200 feet. I would suggest that last sentence be item 7 on the second page be changed to staff shall provide a copy of the resolution of intent as required by statute to all owners of property adjoining the section of street proposed to be closed. That gets you back to the statutory requirement and doesn't enlarge that notice requirement and open doors. That's just my suggestion.
Okay. Can we vote to approve based on your suggestions?
Again, it would be a motion to, first you'd have a motion to amend the proposed ordinance and then a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
All right. Do I have any discussion with board members?
Well, I certainly understand Ron's thinking in bringing the amendment back to reflect the statute. However, I would say that my personal feeling and belief is that the process works better when more people are notified and made aware and can participate. And by having the 200 feet, I think that may not always, but will in some cases, allow other parties more access to that hearing, and I'm not in favor of changing it because of that.
Let me give you my wording for that variety.
Okay.
On paragraph 7, I would have added, and may provide a copy to all property owners within 200 feet of the proposed section of street to be closed, if directed by the alderman.
Okay.
That way, when it came to you for the resolution of intent, and it was a street closing that looked like it was going to have effect on more people than just the adjoining property owners, it's in your discretion to do it. I don't want it to be a requirement because that opens those doors, but I think it's a discretionary thing with this board. We don't create problems, and you reserve that ability if you'd like. That's the second option.
I would be comfortable voting for the Second Amendment as presented.
Yeah.
All right, do I have a motion to close the public hearing or any other, do we have any other questions first?
We have comments from the public, I believe.
We didn't have anybody sign up for it.
Well, you don't have to for public hearing.
All right, come ahead.
Elaine Lotzenheiser, 410 Avena Road. I think that since you're changing what you're voting on, and the planning board had approved what was in there already, that you should run this by the planning board before you vote on it. Thank you.
Any discussion with board members?
Jessica, do you have a comment about that, taking it back to the planning board? You don't have to. I'm just curious if you did.
I'm happy to if you want me to. I'll do it.
Please.
Wait, no, I'm happy to take it back to the planning board if you would like me to. You're their recommending body, and you're the policymaking body, and if you would like another look at it and an opinion as this has been amended, then that's fine too.
Okay.
Certainly. Yeah, no, we don't have to do it.
But I hear concerns about if you put it over, you'll be renoticing and republishing.
Mm-hmm.
May I recommend that you continue this public hearing to a date certain, up being your next regular board meeting, at which time you'll pick this back up with any further discussion from the planning board, and you won't have to renotice and republish.
Motion to continue?
If this is a good place to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't call, you're not closing the public hearing, you're adjourning it and continuing it to the next regular meeting.
Which will be
The 11th of
February the 11th. We have a motion.
That would be my motion. That would be my motion to continue the discussion until the next scheduled board meeting.
Have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? All righty. Communication from staff. Mr. Sneed.
I've run out.
All right, Josh?
Yeah, three quick things. Just a reminder, we will be closed in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Monday, January 21st. So the federal funding we currently have in place for the Avadum project and any other project, I think that's the only one. As you're all aware, the federal government is operating in not full capacity, so our funding for that is kind of on hold right now. I did speak with our engineer on the project, Jesse Gardner, this morning. Looks like we'll be on the hook for about $100,000 for the month of January to kind of front, which we would anyway.
I was going to say, we do that anyway.
We would anyway.
We pay first, right, and get reimbursed.
We would anyway. February, we may be looking at a larger bill of $200,000 or $300,000. Some of that would be Golden Leaf funding, so it won't all be federal funding. But just so you're aware that is a possibility. And then for February 2nd, which is a Saturday at 12:30, we'll hold our strategic planning session where the Board of Aldermen will determine some of their goals and priorities for our upcoming budget later this year.
That's February when?
February 2nd at 12:30.
12:30. And that's here?
That's here. And that's all about it.
Okay. Communication from the board.
Just want to echo some of the comments that have already been made about our public service staff, police, fire, water, public safety. You guys are doing a heck of a job. Keep up the good work in the events where we've had with the snow and the ice, the situation with the tree falling on the house, the flooding. I think our staff have really stepped up to the plate and done a heck of a job, and they are to be totally commended for what they do.
Anyone else? on that note, Carlos, just some things that, one thing I'd like to mention that not only were the police and the fire up there when the tree was on the little youngin. I have seen his swollen up eye and the near rush to death with death that he had. But our folks in the police department got together and took donations and raised money and bought that youngin new clothes, new Star Wars toys to play with, and presented them to him up there in the public safety building. Gave him a tour of the police department and the fire department. And those guys just go unsung sometimes for the things that they do. This not their duty or responsibility. They do it because that's who they are. So I'd like to thank them for that. Then I'd like to, unless there's anything from anyone else, I'd like to call for a motion to enter in closed session to consult with the town attorney as permitted in NCGS 143-318.4A3. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Bob.